Hello everybody, in Lalit we're doing a short video today to really pay homage to everyone in other countries around the world who's helped in the struggle over Diego Garcia and Chagos and contributed to what was really an important victory in terms of changing the balance of forces in the judgment that was handed down by the International Court of Justice at The Hague on Monday the 25th of February. That's the day before yesterday. In Lalit, as with many people in Mauritius, including Chagosians, we've had a long battle ever since independence on three issues. Lots of you already know about this. First, because there was an American base that they wanted to set up at the time of independence from Britain went ahead and broke Mauritian territory in two, kept half and made a new colony called British Indian Ocean Territories and gave the rest of Mauritius independence. That's one issue that we were struggling on, was the sovereignty issue as well as the base. And then thirdly, in order to do that, the British, together with the Americans, actually forcibly removed all the inhabitants from Chagos. And it was so violent that at one point they even gassed and killed all the dogs, the pet dogs of people living in Chagos. And for the last people who didn't want to leave, they literally starved them off. First there weren't medicines, and then they started to decrease the food on the archipelago. Anyway, for many years we've been having all sorts of struggles that many of you know about. And we can say that for the first time perhaps that we had really massive international contact as a party, Lalit, was in 1981, at a time when there was a big women's demonstration, Chagosians and Lalit members, and it ended up after 3 days of demonstrations around a hunger strike with a confrontation with the police. And at the time, 8 of us were arrested. I was one of them. And we were, while we were going through court cases and everything, we got a lot of support from telegrams. We used to send telegrams every evening and get replies from all over the world, literally. And I remember when our case came up, our lawyer, the late Kadia Bayat, once said, "Oh, I think the government's going to collapse now because a women's organization in Togo has now taken position." So just to show how we had support literally from India, from Africa, from Latin America, Europe, and the United States. Anyway, we've had the internationalization of this struggle, and it joined up very thoroughly in the late 1990s and the 2000s with the no bases movement, which was called no US bases in the beginning, and then it became no bases. And in fact, Lalit became one of the joint organizers of this network that was working at closing bases absolutely everywhere in the world. Wherever there was a base, we were working at closing down the bases. And we participated, for example, in the meetings of no bases and of the anti-war movement in Mumbai, and then later no bases gathering in Ecuador, in Quito. And we had a sort of caravan of buses, international delegates, including people from Mauritius, all the way down to Manta, where there was a base, a US base, which in fact was closed down soon after that. So all this to say that we've had support from literally every continent. We've had support from people in South Africa. We've had support from people in Britain and France. We've had support, at one point, working class people, dockers in Holland, in the Netherlands, sent us the very first proofs we had of there being nuclear materials handled on Jago. They had handled them and they were on their way there. People from Rotterdam, in fact. Can you remember the year, Rajni?
1984.
1984. So it's a long time that there've been this fantastic international input. Lalit has also had 2 international conferences, and people from abroad, paying their own way, came as delegates and participated in these conferences, enriching us with their struggles, and then us also enriching them, we hope, with our struggle here. So it's been a long struggle, and now we've got a judgment. What's in the judgment? The judgment is fantastic on decolonization, how it is unlawful to break up any colony prior to independence. And this is for logical reasons, really, as well as international legal reasons, in the sense that both the colony and the colonizer have the same head of state. So the one is in a very weak position as being possession of the other and cannot form a binding agreement of any kind. So all the sort of palaver in Mauritius that the previous government under colony laws, had supposedly ceded Chagos to Britain was just so much palaver itself, and that's what the judgment found. It was unlawful. Not only did they say Britain acted unlawfully, but they said Britain has to repair this and get out of there as fast as possible. Thirdly, they said that all UN state members, and this concerns everybody, all UN state members they have an obligation to put pressure on and to advise and to organize for Britain to leave. And fourthly, the BIOT, that imaginary figment of a colony that they set up, is also unlawful and will fall away. So now it's a matter of time, in a way, because the balance of forces is changed in a massive way by this judgment against the UK. And so all the issues are on the table now, and we really have to work towards decolonization and towards closing the base. And this becomes important for us internationally. The Mauritian government, and indeed many of the opposition parties in the mainstream arena, and lots of the people who are like opinion makers in the press, they're very quick to separate the issue of closing down the base from the issue of this victory on the decolonization of Mauritius. Whereas in Lalit, we link these really closely. That's to say, the struggle of the Chagosians, the struggle for decolonization, and the struggle to close the base need to be linked, and we must push on now to close the base down. It is really the only way to go, and we make it clear that our government does not have this position at the moment. We try to force it to take this position. And there are many things in our favor at the moment, because with all that support for the Mauritian government now to try and negotiate with the US to stay at the base and to pay some kind of a rent money becomes absolutely immoral and patently immoral. But even worse than that, well, is it worse? No. Equally bad is that the Pelindaba Treaty, by which South Africa, when at the time Nelson Mandela came to power, he and his government agreed to dismantle the whole nuclear armaments and the nuclear program of the apartheid regime, in exchange for everyone agreed that the whole of Africa should be a nuclear arms-free zone. The treaty is known as the Pelindaba Treaty because Pelindaba is the place where the nuclear arms were. Now, this has only very recently become fully binding. It's signed up to by the States and Britain as well. And now that it is statuted by the International Court of Justice at The Hague, the highest UN court, that Chagos is part of Mauritius, and everyone knows Jago is part of Chagos, and Mauritius is a member of the African Union, is part of Africa, and so therefore the base actually becomes illegal by a binding treaty this time, because the ICJ's judgment is advisory, but the Pelindaba Treaty is binding. So our struggle continues, and it's with great interest that we follow the struggle to close down bases. For example, in Okinawa recently, there's even been a referendum that we've been following here. And we have links with people in Japan and in particular in Okinawa. As indeed we have links with people who are trying to close down bases all over the world. And we really seize this moment to inform you of what's happening, to express our fantastic appreciation for all the support we've had for all those years, and that this will continue, and we hope we'll be able to continue giving support against militarization, against colonization, and against the forcible removal of people from where they live.